My parents died today, and I'm too hungry to cry. Rancher. Until he said, "You still got me, kid." Casey stared at the empty soup cans in the kitchen pantry, her stomach twisting into knots. 3 days since she'd found her parents shot dead in their truck. 3 days of surviving on stale crackers and tap water. The hunger gnawed at her worse than the grief. The doorbell rang. Casey peeked to the front window and saw Sheriff Mills standing on the porch, hat in hand, that fake concerned look on his face. "Casey, honey, open up. Just want to check on you." She cracked the door, keeping the chain latched. "I'm fine." "You don't look fine. You look thin." "I'm eating." "What are you eating?" Casey's stomach rumbled loudly enough for him to hear. "Crackers." "That's not enough for a growing girl." "It's what I got." Sheriff Mills pushed gently against the door. "Let me in, Casey. We need to talk about your parents' business." "What business?" "The ranch. Their dealings with the county." Casey unlatched the chain, but didn't step aside. "They raise cattle." "They raise more than cattle, honey." Mills stepped inside without invitation, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. "They raised hell about the development project." Casey followed him into the living room, where unopened mail was stacked on the coffee table. They had rights. They had opinions. Same thing. Mills sat down in her father's chair. Casey wanted to tell him to get out of it, but she was too tired to fight. "Your parents ever mention hiding anything valuable?" "Like what?" "Documents. Money. Things the county might want back." "They didn't steal nothing." "I didn't say they stole anything." Mills looked around the room like he was cataloging everything. "But they were fighting the land seizure. Fighting it hard." So, people who fight that hard usually have reasons." Casey's neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, knocked on the door. Mills frowned. "Don't answer it." "Why not?" "Because I'm not done talking to you." Casey opened the door anyway. Mrs. Henderson stood there holding a casserole dish. "Oh, Sheriff, didn't know you were here. Just checking on Casey. Poor thing's been alone for days. Nobody should have to go through this." Mrs. Henderson handed Casey the casserole. "Tuna noodle, your mama's favorite recipe." Casey's eyes filled with tears for the first time since finding the bodies. "Thank you. You call if you need anything, honey." After Mrs. Henderson left, Mills stood up. "Neighbors talk too much in small towns." "What's that supposed to mean?" "Means you should be careful what you tell people." Casey hugged the casserole dish against her chest. "About what?" "About what your parents might have left behind. They left behind debts and a broken-down ranch. They left behind enemies, too." Casey's blood went cold. "What enemies?" "People don't get shot on back roads for no reason, Casey." "You said it was a robbery." "I said it looked like a robbery." Mills walked to the window and looked out at the fields. "Your parents never went down Millfield Road. Never had reason to. Maybe they were going somewhere new. Maybe someone told them to go there." Casey set the casserole on the kitchen counter next to the empty soup cans. Who would do that? Someone who needed them gone. Mills turned from the window. "The development project's worth millions, Casey. People kill for a lot less." "You think someone murdered them?" "I think your parents knew something they shouldn't have known." Casey's hand shook as she opened the casserole dish. The smell of food made her dizzy with hunger. "Knew what?" "That's what I'm trying to figure out." Mills headed for the door. "I'll be back tomorrow. Think about what I said." "What am I supposed to think about?" "Think about whether your parents mentioned any papers, any meetings, any threats." After Mills left, Casey ate half the casserole standing at the kitchen counter. Her first real food in 3 days. She should have felt better. But Mills' words kept echoing in her head. The truck hadn't been robbed. Her father's wallet was still in his pocket. Her mother's purse untouched. If it was a robbery, why didn't they take anything? Casey walked to the barn where the family truck sat covered in a tarp. She pulled the canvas back and stared at the bloodstains on the seats. Dark brown now, dried into the fabric. Her parents' blood. They never went to Millfield Road. She knew every road in the county, and Millfield led nowhere but to the old quarry. Why would they go there? The sun was setting when she heard the truck engine in the driveway. Casey peeked through the kitchen curtains and felt her heart stop. Sheriff Mills was back, but he wasn't alone. 2 men in work clothes climbed out his truck, carrying shovels and flashlights. Casey turned off all the lights and crept upstairs to her bedroom window. The 3 men were walking toward the barn, their flashlight beams cutting through the darkness. They were looking for something they thought her parents had hidden, something worth killing for. Chapter 2. The Stranger's Promise. Casey watched from her bedroom window as the 3 men searched the barn with their flashlights. They moved methodically, checking every stall, every corner, their shovels scraping against concrete. Sheriff Mills barked orders at the other 2 men, pointing toward different areas of the property. The front door exploded inward. "Casey, get down here now." Mills stood in the doorway, his gun drawn. "I said get down here." Casey crept down the stairs, her heart hammering against her ribs. "What do you want?" "I want what your parents hid." "I told you they didn't hide nothing." "Don't lie to me, girl." Mills grabbed her arm roughly. "Those men out there are going to tear this place apart until they find it." Another truck engine roared in the driveway. Mills cursed under his breath. "Who's that?" "I don't know." A man's voice boomed from outside. "Mills, get your hands off that girl." Through the broken door, Casey saw a tall rancher in worn jeans and a faded work shirt climbing out of a dusty pickup. He looked older than her father would have been, maybe 50, with gray stubble and eyes like winter sky. Wade Garrett. Should have known. Mills released Casey's arm but kept his gun out. "This is official business, Wade." "Official business, my ass." Wade stepped into the house without invitation. "You got a warrant to break down doors?" "I got probable cause." "You got probable lies?" Wade looked at Casey with something like recognition. "You're Daniel's girl." "You knew my daddy?" "Served with him in Iraq. Best man at his wedding." Mills stepped between them. "She's coming with me. Child Services wants her in protective custody." "Since when?" "Since her parents got themselves killed." Wade's face darkened. "They didn't get themselves killed. They were murdered." "That's a serious accusation. That's a serious fact." Wade pulled a paper bag from his coat. "Brought you some sandwiches. Honey, your dad always said you liked turkey." Casey's stomach cramped with hunger, but she didn't move toward the food. "How do I know you're telling the truth?" "Because your daddy asked me to watch over you if anything happened." "When did he say that?" 2 weeks ago. Called me worried sick about the county development." Mills holstered his gun, but moved closer. "What development worries?" "The illegal dumping." Wade's voice carried quiet authority. "Daniel and Sarah found chemical barrels buried on the land the county wants to seize." Casey felt the floor shift beneath her feet. "What chemicals?" "Industrial waste. Toxic stuff that makes the land worthless for development." "Why would they dump poison?" "Because it's cheaper than proper disposal. And because they needed a reason to condemn the land." Mills' face flushed red. "That's conspiracy theory nonsense." "That's documented fact." Wade pulled out his phone. "Got pictures Daniel sent me before he died." Casey stared at the photos. Metal drums half buried in soil, chemical residue staining the ground, dead vegetation in perfect circles. "My parents found this?" "Your parents found this and threatened to expose it. So they were killed. So they were silenced." Mills stepped toward Wade. "You're filling this girl's head with fantasies." "I'm telling her the truth." "The truth is her parents were killed in a robbery." "The truth is her parents were killed by people who needed them quiet." Casey looked between the 2 men, her hunger making it hard to think straight. "Wade, can I have one of those sandwiches?" "Course you can, honey." She unwrapped the sandwich with shaking hands. Turkey and cheese on white bread. The first bite made her dizzy with relief. "Casey, you can't stay here alone anymore." Mills' voice had gone soft, almost fatherly. "It's not safe." "She's not alone." Wade put a protective hand on Casey's shoulder. "She's got me now." "You got no legal standing." "I got moral standing." "That don't count in court." "It counts with me." Casey finished half the sandwich before looking up. What happens to the ranch if I leave? County takes it for unpaid taxes. Mills' answer came too fast. How do you know that? Because that's what happens to abandoned property. Wade shook his head. It only gets abandoned if you abandon it. I don't want to abandon it. Then don't. Mills grabbed Casey's other arm. You're 17 years old. You can't run a ranch alone. She won't be alone. Wade stepped closer. I said she's got me. And I said you got no rights here. Mills started pulling Casey toward the door. Come on. Car's outside. I don't want to go. Don't matter what you want. Wade moved between Mills and the door. Let go of her. Move aside, Wade. Let go of her now. Mills drew his gun again. I'm placing this child in protective custody. You're kidnapping this child for political reasons. Casey looked at Wade's face, saw something familiar in his eyes. The same stubborn loyalty her father had shown when he fought the county. Wade. Yeah, honey? Were you really my daddy's friend? Best friend he ever had. Something inside Casey finally broke. The numbness cracked open like an egg, and all the grief she'd been holding came flooding out. They're really gone. The words came out as a sob. They're really gone, aren't they? Wade gently took her from Mills' grip and held her while she cried. Yeah, honey, they're really gone. Casey buried her face in his shoulder and wept for her parents, for her empty house, for the childhood that ended 3 days ago in a blood-stained truck. But you still got me, kid. Wade held Casey while she sobbed, her tears soaking into his work shirt. Sheriff Mills stood frozen in the doorway, his gun lowered but still in his hand. You still got me, kid. Wade's voice was gentle but firm. Your parents asked me to take care of you, and that's what I'm going to do. Casey pulled back, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. I don't even know you. You knew your daddy. That's enough. Mills holstered his weapon. This is touching, but the girl's still coming with me. Over my dead body. Wade guided Casey toward the back door. We're leaving. Now. Where are we going? My ranch. It's safe there. Mills followed them outside. You can't just take her. Watch me. Wade helped Casey into his truck. Through the windshield, she could see Mills' men still searching the barn with their flashlights. What are they looking for? Evidence your parents hid about the chemical dumping. Wade started the engine. Evidence that could send a lot of powerful people to prison. Do you think they'll find it? Not where they're looking. Wade's ranch was 20 miles away, a neat 2-story house surrounded by pastures where cattle graze in the moonlight. He led Casey into a kitchen that smelled like coffee and bacon. You hungry? Always. Wade opened the refrigerator and pulled out leftover roast beef. Make yourself a sandwich. We got work to do. What kind of work? Finding what your parents hid. Casey built a thick sandwich while Wade spread maps across the kitchen table. Your daddy was smart. If he hid something, it's somewhere Mills would never think to look. Like where? Think, Casey. Where did your parents go when they wanted privacy? Casey chewed her sandwich, thinking back to childhood memories. The old well behind the house. That's it. Wade circled a spot on the map. Your daddy always said that well held secrets. They drove back to Casey's house at dawn. Mills' truck was gone, but the barn looked like a tornado had hit it. Hay bales scattered, feed sacks torn open. Every hiding place searched and abandoned. They didn't find anything. Casey led Wade to the old stone well behind the house. It had been covered with boards for years, weeds growing up through the cracks. Daddy used to say this well was deeper than memory. They pulled off the boards. Wade lowered a flashlight into the darkness. There, waterproof container wedged into the stone about 10 feet down. Casey watched Wade climb down the rope ladder. He emerged with a metal box wrapped in plastic. Jackpot. Inside were photographs, documents, and a letter addressed to Casey. Her father's handwriting was shaky but clear. If you're reading this, your mother and I are probably dead. Sheriff Mills is being paid by Hartwell Development Company to silence anyone who opposes the land seizure. The chemical dump is on Section 12. The evidence is in this box. Trust Wade Garrett. He's the only one who can help you now. Casey looked up as 3 black SUVs pulled into the driveway. State investigators. Wade smiled grimly. Called them yesterday. Sheriff Mills arrived just as the investigators were examining the evidence. His face went white when he saw the box. That's stolen property. That's evidence of murder. Special Agent Martinez stepped forward. Sheriff Mills, you're under arrest for conspiracy, bribery, and accessory to murder. Mills drew his gun in desperation. Nobody's arresting anybody. Casey stepped between Mills and the investigators. Her fear gone, replaced by something harder. You killed my parents. Your parents killed themselves with their big mouths. They died because they told the truth. The truth don't pay bills, little girl. But justice does. Agent Martinez nodded to his team. They moved quickly, disarming Mills before he could fire. At the trial 6 months later, Casey testified with steady voice and clear eyes. She described finding her parents' bodies, living alone and hungry, and discovering conspiracy that cost them their lives. Mills was sentenced to life without parole. The development company was shut down, the land preserved. Casey now lived at Wade's ranch in a room that used to belong to his daughter, who died in a car accident years before. She called him Dad now, and he called her his second chance. The kitchen was always full of food and conversation. Casey had gained 20 pounds and learned to drive Wade's ranch truck. They sat on the porch at sunset, watching cattle graze in the fields her parents had died protecting. Dad, what did my parents want for this land? They wanted it to stay wild and free. Casey picked at the porch railing, thinking, you think they'd be proud of what we did? Wade put his arm around her shoulders. They'd be proud of who you became. What's that? Someone who doesn't give up. Someone who fights for what's right. Casey leaned against his shoulder. Do you think their dreams died with them? Wade looked out at the land stretching toward the horizon, where the old well held its secrets and the earth held their memories. Their dreams didn't die with them, kid. We're living them now. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky red and gold, and Casey understood that some families are born and some families are chosen, but all families are held together by love and the promise to never give up on each other.